30 years ago, Ron Paul entered into politics because he saw that our country was headed in the wrong direction and that we were no longer heeding the advice of our founders. Now, 30 years later, he is still fighting to keep our constitutional rights intact. He has certainly earned our votes for his candidacy. My talk here tonight for this great statesman is to announce to you that now is the time to elect the only true conservative into the highest office of this great nation of ours. Here is why I support Ron Paul for the presidency. Ron Paul has by far the best voting record. He has never voted to raise taxes or for an unbalanced budget. He has never voted for a federal restriction on gun ownership, which has earned him an A+ rating from the Gun Owners of America organization. He has never voted to raise congressional pay. He has never taken a government-paid junket. He has never voted to increase the power of the executive branch. He voted against regulating the internet. He voted against the Iraq War. He does not participate in the lucrative congressional pension program. He returns a portion of his annual congressional office budget to the U.S. Treasury every year. He introduces numerous pieces of substantive legislation each year, probably more than any single member of Congress. He will abolish the IRS and replace it with?
Nothing.
Thank you. He will do this by stopping all the unconstitutional spending that our government bureaucrats have gotten used to. He will get rid of that dollar-destroying, secretive, and unaccountable private bank known as the Fed. For almost 100 years, government bureaucrats have been allowing this private centralized bank to devalue our money by printing it out of thin air, usually to bail out the big corporations that help keep these big government bureaucrats in office, by the way. He plans on doing this by allowing for competition and returning to a gold standard as the Constitution requires. I do not know about you, but if given the choice, I would take dollars backed by gold and silver any day over fiat money. He will end plans to build a NAFTA superhighway and the plans to form a North American Union, which would make our Constitution null and void. He will protect our borders and refuse to grant amnesty to illegal aliens. He will get rid of the incentives that cause illegal aliens to come into this country in the first place by not granting them birthright citizenship, free health care, or a free education. Ron Paul is the only candidate that is making a strong principled stand for life. As an OBGYN, having delivered over 4,000 babies, he knows that unborn babies are a human life with legal rights and protections. He believes that in cases where a human life is being taken, that these cases should be taken care of in a similar fashion as murder cases are handled, and that is on the local level. Ron Paul believes, as I do, that the case of Roe v. Wade was a case where the federal government overstepped its bounds and gave a single federally mandated solution to this very complex problem. He understands the importance of nominating strict constructionist judges who recognize states' rights when dealing with these kinds of issues. Ron Paul will work hard to end this tyranny of the federal courts. Ron Paul is the only candidate that will protect our liberties. He is one of the few that voted against that deceptively misnamed Patriot Act. Ron Paul also opposed the Military Commissions Act, which permits torture, or what politicians like to call enhanced interrogation techniques. It allows for the arbitrary detention of American citizens as unlawful enemy combatants at the full discretion of the president and without the right of habeas corpus, and grants warrantless searches by the National Security Agency. It also gives to the president the power to imprison individuals based on secret testimony. These assaults on our liberties are disgraceful, and Ron Paul is the only candidate in this race that has shown the intestinal fortitude to stand against these attacks. We must remember that when we sacrifice liberty for security, we will lose both. He will end the occupation of foreign nations that overextend our military and throw us into insurmountable debt, and that cause other nations to resent our presence. If you don't agree with this kind of foreign policy, just ask yourself if you would shoot at foreign troops if they occupied our nation. We have over 700 bases in 130 different nations. We spend approximately $1 trillion per year to maintain our global military presence around the world. The simple fact is we can no longer afford this, and it is our children that we are going to make pay for all of this.
Yep.
We have a dollar on the brink of collapse. Our economy is in shambles. Our good name around the world has been tarnished. Our government is out of control with spending. Our national debt stands approximately $9 trillion. Ron Paul is the only candidate who is speaking forcefully about these issues and has a real plan to fix them. It's been said that this man is an isolationist, but nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the true isolationists are the ones that think that they have to have an intimidating presence in other countries. But the truth of the matter is that it's these kind of policies that isolate us from having peaceful and friendly relationships with other nations. Ronald Reagan said of this man, he is one of the outstanding leaders fighting for a stronger national defense. As a former Air Force officer, he knows well the needs of our armed forces, and he always puts them first. We need to keep him fighting for our country. End of quote. Ron Paul is the only candidate that will protect our pursuit of happiness, otherwise known as our right to keep and own property. As a mature Christian statesman, Ron Paul recognizes that the Bible only gives government a very limited role in society, and that the civil government's role is limited to protecting these individual rights. When a government violates these rights through whatever means, they are breaking God's law and liable for such offenses. In God's eyes, theft is still theft, even through those civil laws may be passed to make it illegal for the government to engage in it. Therefore, Ron Paul is very cautious not to engage in these unlawful acts against humanity. In one radio interview, Ron Paul has agreed that, biblically speaking, it is not the role of civil government at any level, federal, state, or local, to house, clothe, feed, or educate anybody. For in doing so, they would have to violate the rights of individuals by forcibly taking from some individuals in order to give to others. To give you an idea of why these politicians would do such a thing, studies have shown that 60 to 70% of money fades into the bureaucracy, and only 30 to 40% actually gets to the people in need. This demonstrates that centralizing these benefits is in fact the most inefficient way to provide for them. The biblical and more efficient way to help the needy is for the local church to provide for them. I have personally witnessed that when a church provides for the needy, 90 to 100% of these monies go to those in need. So if you want the only candidate that will fight hard for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as our founders envisioned for this country, Ron Paul is your man. The old media is trying to tell us that Ron Paul is a long shot and does not have a chance to win. But here are some numbers that they are hiding from you. His supporters, without any help from the campaign, raised a record $4.3 million in one day on November 5th, and over $6 million on December 16th, which brings the total contributions for the fourth quarter to about $20 million. Ron Paul has received more donations from active military personnel than any other candidate. He has over 80,000 meetup members, some of us here, and well over 1,400 meetup groups nationwide. Compare this to Rudy Giuliani, with only 25 members in 3 meetup groups, or Hillary Clinton with 1,200 members in 45 meetup groups. He has won first place in 32 of the 55 straw polls held around the nation this fall, of which 46 of those he placed in the top 3. In our straw poll in Johnson County, Ron Paul got 79 votes out of 79 voters, 40 of which said that they had switched to the Republican Party to vote for Dr. Paul, which demonstrates just one more reason why Ron Paul is the only candidate that has a chance at beating the Democratic nominee this year. Post-Republican debate polls show Ron Paul winning, and in most cases by a large margin. NBC on May 3rd with 47%, CNN on June 5th with 60%, ABC on August 5th with 63%, Fox News on September 5th with 33%, CNBC on October 9th with 74%, Fox News on October 21st with 34%, CNN on November 28th with 51%. He also has an advertising blimp for flyovers of major events. All of this coming from private individuals that like his message of peace, prosperity, and freedom. I hope this will quench all fears whether or not Ron Paul can win the presidency. One such individual, Lawrence Leopard, has even taken out a full-page ad in USA Today costing him $85,000 and another ad in the New York Times on why he spent that money. Ron Paul's message of freedom, prosperity, and peace has sparked a second revolution in this country, which is not really a second, but a continuation of the first revolution. And it is for this reason that I am convinced that the old media is in for a surprise when Ron Paul not only takes the Republican nomination, but he will win the presidency this November. What I'm asking from you here tonight is more than just the support of an honest and sincere candidate. What I want from you is to adopt not only this man's political philosophy, but his moral integrity and passion to restore what our founding fathers were willing to sacrifice their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor for. If you want peace, prosperity, and freedom for you and your children, I ask you to vote for Ron Paul. Thank you.